Borada Croeso. Good morning and welcome. Welcome to the session that is going to discuss collaborating a system-to-system partnership, Wales and Vietnam, which will reflect how Wales is engaged with Vietnam as an international HE partner, as colleagues from HEFQ, British Council Vietnam, and representatives from universities in Wales and Vietnam consider the mutual benefits and positive outcomes of this system-to-system partnership. My name is Lee Robinson. I'm the Pro Vice Chancellor for Partnerships and External Engagement at Cardiff Metropolitan University, and I am your host today. We've got a really experienced panel who I will introduce shortly, but in the meantime, I would encourage you to be involved this morning by asking your questions using the Q&A function. Once the panel have finished their presentations, we will have time for questions from the audience, so please post them for us to answer at the end of the session. And don't forget, you can tweet throughout the session using our hashtag GW21 and tagging us at Wales_global and at UUK events. As you know, Global Wales is a partnership between Universities Wales, British Council Wales, the Higher Education Funding Council for Wales and the Welsh Government that provides strategic support to the Welsh higher education sector as a key export industry and builds networks for Wales internationally. One of Global Wales' priority markets for international engagement is Vietnam, and it is this partnership that is the focus of this session. Because of the collaborative nature of Global Wales and its position between government, regulator, and the sector, unique to Global Wales is its ability to engage in system-to-system development. With the Vietnam government focused on building international partnerships to drive its reform of higher education, there have been significant opportunities for Global Wales to engage with Vietnam at a system level. And following the signing of an MOU collaboration in HE in January 2019, Global Wales has been able to leverage all aspects of the higher education system, government, regulator, sector, to help inform government thinking as well as support Vietnamese institutions through the transition with bespoke training and mentoring. The Global Wales approach to Vietnam, therefore, has been to package Wales's HE system for policy dialogue with key partners, including MOAT, World Bank, and the British Council, partnership building, and student and staff mobility. The system-to-system approach that we're discussing today that Global Wales has adopted is crucial to building networks and governments and other international organisations in priority countries. This approach can be used to facilitate further education partnerships and capacity building projects, as well as exploring partnerships with scholarship sponsor organisations in those markets. The partnership arrangement allows Wales to be responsive and joined up, working across different areas of government and the HE sector to develop and establish close working relationships with MOAT and the Vietnamese government alongside partnerships with universities. This ability to coordinate activity across the sector in Wales and integrate with Welsh Government, for instance, by involving the Minister for Education and Education Delegation to Vietnam, has provided opportunities for Wales to learn and benefit from approaches within Vietnam at sector and government level, as well as at institutional level. The commitment to Vietnam as a priority country has boosted Wales's profile in an emerging economy. It allows Global Wales to support the Welsh Government's first international strategy, promoting Wales as outward-looking and a globally competitive nation, with ambitions to raise Wales's international profile, grow the Welsh economy through increasing exports and attracting inward investment, and establish Wales as a globally responsible nation. Global Wales is ideally placed to support all three of these aims, and the system-to-system collaboration is evidence of that. I'm now going to move over to introduce the rest of the panel. So our first speaker this morning will be Rob Humphreys, who's the chair of the Higher Education Funding Council for Wales, and he's going to be discussing what a system-to-system approach works and how it's worked in the context of the collaboration. This will be followed by Van An Huong, Director of Education and Society, British Council Vietnam, who will be delivering the British Council Vietnam's perspective. Dr. Thuy Bui, Deputy Head of External Affairs Office, Hanoi University of Science and Technology, will add more to that Vietnam institutional perspective, and we'll finish up with Sarah Lethbridge, Director of Executive Education, and Phil Swan, Business Development Manager, at Cardiff University Business School, who will provide a Welsh perspective. Each of our panelists has 5 minutes to add their perspective, and then we'll move on to questions and answers at the end. So take it away, Rob.
Thanks very much, Diolch Lee. Hello, everyone. Great to see old friends and new colleagues. I'll get straight into it. My task is quite simple in the next 4.5 minutes or so. It's simply to unpack a little more what system to system actually means. I will say a little bit about how we've sought to deploy a system to system approach, particularly around governance and autonomy in HE and our relationships, building relationships in that area in Vietnam. It's inevitably quite compressed, what I've got to say, and I'm sure people will have questions which will tease out some of the complexities. Let's start with the notion of partnership. Partnership is core to many, perhaps most aspects of public policy in Wales. It's almost an inbuilt part of public policy that working together is beneficial for government, for organisations, institutions, the private sector, in fact, and of course, citizens. So whilst clearly we exist within a market economy and so on, there is a big emphasis on working in partnership. That's built in to public policy in Wales. And that applies to higher education, and I'll come on to that in a second. But just to note that Global Wales itself is an exemplar example of being a partnership between the Higher Education Funding Council, of which I'm chair, Universities Wales, that is the set of institutions, the Welsh Government, and British Council. And I should say just in passing that the British Council's role in Global Wales and in securing partnerships in Vietnam has been absolutely critical. Van An, who you'll hear from in a minute, Van An and her colleagues have been central, their excellent relationships in Vietnam in helping the partnership develop. So what does a system mean in higher education for us in Wales? Well, it means more than simply a set of institutions who work separately, independently, and sometimes in competition. That's the model elsewhere in much of the Western world, but in Wales, the set of institutions, the 9 universities, if you include the Open University, those institutions, and of course their learners, the arm's length funding body, HEFGU, the government, and the tertiary sector, the further education sector, and various other stakeholders, they are seen as a set of interlocking parts, each with its specific role to perform, working together for the benefit of learners, research, and the wider citizenry, the economy and society as a whole. So they're not just a set of competing institutions in a marketplace, they're a set of interlocking parts within a system. Now, competition still exists within that system, but that competition is mediated and moderated by the fact that the system actually exists. And then to add a little bit more complexity, and this is not paradoxical, although it may seem so, institutional autonomy and arm's length governments, that is, universities sit at arm's length from the government, they're not under government control, that autonomy exists within the broad concept and framework of a higher education system. Perhaps you might want to ask me later in questions exactly how that operates. So how have we sought to deploy that with colleagues in Vietnam and in international collaboration more generally? Well, clearly we're interested, as you've heard earlier on in this conference, in student mobility and reciprocity, international collaboration around research and so on. But bear in mind that this is not something which is simply extractive, seeking to benefit Welsh HE. We are bringing the whole system to bear in building relationships with an equivalent or near equivalent system elsewhere, in this case, Vietnam. And we're able to lever in government, funding body, the regulatory body, which I am chair, and institutions themselves, and individual research groupings in those institutions and learners and so on. We deploy the full set of the various bodies and individuals to discuss, talk, share with advise and help with their equivalents in Vietnam. And in particular, we've laid emphasis on assisting colleagues in Vietnam with their HE reform program. And again, this is reciprocal. It's not something where we bring great wisdom from Wales and say, this is how to do it. We too have had to learn since the establishment of the Welsh Government at the turn of the 21st century. We've had to learn and reform and rethink how our higher education system can work in an optimal basis. Now, I'll just conclude by saying a couple more things. As well as autonomy and governance, there are many other areas in which the reciprocity and systems-based approach can work. Professor Davis mentioned at the start of the conference, Industrial Revolution 4.0. Well, sure, ASEAN countries are confronting those challenges, but so too are we in Wales. We're still dealing with some of the after effects of the Industrial Revolution 2.0 in Wales. We have a lot to learn in terms of modernising and dealing with the challenges of IR 4.0. Similarly, climate change and COVID, those are global challenges, and we can learn from the Vietnamese approach to those things. And finally, I'll just end on this in terms of how one approaches the culture of approaching a system-to-system approach. We approach it with confidence and professional expertise and experience and so on, but we also approach it with some humility in the way we've sought to deploy a system-to-system approach. And it certainly engenders a huge self-reflection on one's own system when you're talking to senior colleagues from another system about how they do things, how they may want to do things. I've learned so much from working with colleagues in Vietnam, and it's allowed me to reflect on what we can do better in Wales. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you very much, Rob. Lots of interesting points there, and I'm sure you've got questions, so please feel free to add them into the chat and we will get to them at the end of the presentations. I'm now going to pass over to Van An Huong, Director of Education and Society at British Council Vietnam.
Thank you, Liz, and thank you, Rob, for an excellent explanations on how the system works in from the global world perspective. And I would like now to share how the partnership with the Global Wales has supported UK-Vietnam Higher Education Partnership Initiative by British Council and also the Vietnam Higher Education Development Objectives. So in Vietnam, British Council worked closely with the ministry to support the Vietnam in their higher education reform agenda to address challenges in developing high quality human resources and also provide greater values of science, technology and innovation for social and economic development. We do it through the promoting and supporting exchange and mobility between UK and Vietnam and neighboring higher education partnership, and also shaping and drive internationalization agenda of the higher education in Vietnam. So from 2018-2020, through UK-Vietnam Higher Education Partnership Initiative, we have enabled 12 higher education partnership between 17 UK and 40 Vietnamese university and 30 other organizations, and also established UK-Vietnam Higher Education Network. But the partnership with Global Wales and Vietnamese University came on a very right time when the ministry introduced revised higher education law in 2018, and the revised law introduced a greater levels of autonomy for university in Vietnam, and also emphasize on the need of promoting stronger university industry links to enhance graduate outcomes, as well as internationalization being one of the mechanisms to boost the quality of education. So the partnership between Global Wales and Vietnam University and British Council had providing the following impacts for both systems and also the university partnership. Firstly, it has enabled greater collaborations. So there is excellent and highly regarded partnership between 5 Vietnamese universities and Global Wales that had created networking and additional partnership opportunities. In particular, the partnership was not just about the institution to institution, but actually a system to system one, because through the partnership, both higher education leaders and the ministry policy makers had opportunity to understand how higher education system being governed to ensure quality and services, as well as roles of government and buffer bodies like HECU in ensuring quality and performance and financing higher education in Wales. They also were able to learn on how Wales system works and roles of university in supporting system strengthening. It's also provided at ROPSE, Global Wales and Wales University, opportunity to share knowledge and also learn about a new system and country context in Vietnam. And it also helped to build reputation, visibility, and also cultural understanding with Vietnam. Secondly, the partnership also provides the network and enhanced skills for the higher education leaders in Vietnam. It was able to provide a network of trainers and leaders who have developed knowledge and capability to improve leadership and governance in Vietnamese university, and also to the wider higher education system in Vietnam based on Wales expertise. The capacity of 105 higher education leadership in Vietnam have enhanced. Some said that they have become more confident, being more agile and resilient, and also they have improved in better strategic thinking and decision making. It even provides a better collaboration opportunity for Vietnamese university, not just between Wales and Vietnamese university. And last and more importantly is that it supports the reforms at system levels. Wales models and practice on buffer body and financing higher education were shared with World Bank under their support to Ministry of Education and Training on developing higher education master plan in Vietnam back to 2019. And Vietnamese university also had trained in ways of working and understanding about leadership and governance and university links. It also led to a better leadership at university. And some Vietnamese university even developed a new set of KPI for quality improvement. They also learned about different practices on roles and responsibility of university council, the quality assurance culture, and monitoring evaluation. And during pandemic, they also explore and adapted digital shift, including online delivery training and hybrid models. In the future, British Council continue our commitment to higher education development through our new Going Global Partnership Program. We are looking forward to continue working with Global Wales and Ministry on this agenda. And Vice Minister Sơn, in his opening speech, also mentioned about Vietnam higher education priority in the next 5 years. And I'm glad to share that British Council and the Ministry are co-organizing UK Vietnam Higher Education Conference on preparing higher education for digital transformation. And we will continue to work in partnership with Global Wales, University of Science and Technology, and UK Vietnam Higher Education Network to organize the event in September. Finally, I'm so glad to see that the expertise, knowledge and experience from UK in general and Wales in particular are being used as a benchmark for Vietnam application in the reform process at education sector. And thank you. I'm looking forward to discuss more with you later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Van An. Really good to hear that there's high level recognition of the value of the partnership. I'm sure you've got some questions, so just put them in the chat and we'll come to them at the end. And I'm now going to move over to Dr. Thuy Bui, the Deputy Head of External Affairs Office at Hanoi University of Science and Technology, who I believe is going to share some slides with us.
Thank you, Lee, and good morning, everyone. And thanks also, Rolf and Van Anh for making excellent points. And I think your reflection really helped me to pave the way for my presentation. So I would like to provide a slide on our perspective as Hanoi University of Science and Technology, the leading technical university in Vietnam, when participating in the higher partnership program. So just some activities we participated, especially for the higher education program in the past year. So in 2019, we started to work with Global Wales and University in Wales more in depth. We started the Leadership and Governance UK study tour. And for the phase 2 of our program, we had our university leaders were trained through the senior strategic leadership training at our university together with the 4 other Vietnamese universities. And in 2020 is the phase 2 of the leadership and governance project. Besides participated in the study tour, we also have the leadership and governance online course provided by Cardiff University because of the COVID-19. So when talking about the perspectives, let me walk you through some lessons that we learned from the partnership. So the first one is about organization structure of our university. So I would like to talk about the role of the University Council here, thanks to the learning best practices and models from the UK university and also from Wales. Before we tend to misunderstood the role of a University Council. In particular, the role of University Council can be quite inclusive. However, after the study tour, we learned more about dividing the role and responsibility for delegates from in the University Council so that our university can operate more effectively. Sorry, I want to move to the next slide. Okay, so the second aspect is about university-industry linkage. It's really respond to Rob's perspective about the system to system. And you can see that before our university operated the lab usually in a single manner. However, we learned from the different models and practices that within our university, we tend to collaborate with different schools. And we also opened our university to work with many industry in Vietnam. So as a result, you can see during the COVID-19 pandemic, we have 2 very successful research outcomes. The first is the design of BK ventilators by the 4 schools. And the second achievement is the design of mobile detection chamber by 3 universities at our university. And these research results really significant to Vietnamese society at the moment. And thanks to the partnership, we could develop, we're very confident and happy to have a number of partners, scholars and experts around in the UK and in Wales and other universities, as you can see here. And we are working with Cardiff, Bangor, Coventry, and Portsmouth University and others on many ongoing projects. And we could develop, we're done with developing the strategy to attract talented scholars and experts, and we just launched this project last week. We also benefited from the partnership so much in terms of the research project. And you can see that these are very current research projects that we achieved with many different universities. And I would like to talk a little bit about the lifelong creative learners that we were funded by Global Wales. And we will be working with Bangor University to launch this project in order to enhance entrepreneurship and innovation skills for our students from next week. We have so many things to say, but we just want to close here due to the limitation of time. We really would like to work with Global Wales and other University Wales to continue work on the leadership and governance in the next phase. Maybe we should focus on digital transformation context, yes, how to operate leadership and governance. And also, I am seeing many exciting activities on Exchange, and iLift is one that's very promising. So we would like to work with our university in Wales on that student exchange initiative and also staff exchange. And in the future, we suggest we both sides could organize many activities for university in Vietnam to know more about university in Wales and to build a sustainable and successful partnership. So I would like to close my very short sharing by thanking Global Wales, British Council, the UK VNHET, and many other universities in Wales and Vietnam for the opportunities for us to work with many projects. And we, as a technical and leading technical university in Vietnam, we committed to work with you all in order to provide more activities and also partnership, as Rob said, to benefit our learners and also create a better societies for our nations. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Thuy. That was really interesting and great to hear some suggestions for additional collaboration. It's always good to sort of move the partnership and make it broader and wider. So thank you very much for those. I'm going to hand over to our last two panelists, Sarah Lethbridge and Phil Swan from Cardiff University Business School, who are going to provide a Welsh institutional perspective on the partnership.
So thanks very much. We've loved getting to know Vietnam more and really hope that one day we'll be over there sampling the delights of Vietnam. That'd be really amazing. So I'll hand over to Phil to tell you more about where this all came from our perspective.
Hello everyone. So Sarah and I became involved in the programme in its second year. So in this second year, it consisted of two parts. The first part was delivered in late 2019, where we were very pleased to host the delegation in Cardiff. And then the second part was delivered online in summer 2020. The first part delivered in Cardiff was focused on strategy and included insights and sharings from our senior leaders and managers at Cardiff University. I know many of my colleagues who participated in those sessions very much enjoyed discussing and sharing what we do at Cardiff University, which also carried many of the benefits on self-reflection, as Rob mentioned in his opening of this session. We also learned a lot from our partners in Vietnam as well about how they approach various areas of HE leadership over in Vietnam. The second part was originally arranged to be delivered in Vietnam. However, due to COVID, we had to reorganise the programme. We were very grateful for Global Wales and the 5 partnering universities' input and positivity in restructuring the programme. We also found we learnt a lot around taking a face-to-face programme online. And we've actually used a lot of those learnings in developing other programmes. The two parts of the programme were linked through a project. So the first project with the first group was addressing an area of strategy. And then that was then handed over to the part 2 participants, who then developed that strategy into an operational plan and implementation of KPIs. Over to you, Sarah.
So thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to talk a bit more about the online learning schedule, which was a huge, I think the correct word to use is pivot. We pivoted very quickly in the crisis to deliver online and work with a learning designer to get that up and running. And yeah, as Phil said, it was a huge learning curve for us, but I think also for Vietnam as well. I think that the delegates hadn't really experienced learning in this form before. And of course, everyone was so busy dealing with the COVID pandemic. It was quite difficult to carve out the time to do the self-reflected learning and asynchronous learning that this programme required. So I think what was really great about it was some of the keynote sessions from people like Professor Ken Hamilton, from Dr. Sarah Herlow, from our Professor Phil Stevens, who helped to bring some of that material alive in terms of the context of Cardiff University. So yeah, we learned loads from that initiative. What's been really fantastic quite recently is we've been provided with the opportunity to, with a little bit of funding, to do an in-depth exploration of some of the issues and themes that were part of that online programme. So specifically, we're working with the University of Da Nang, the University of Science and Technology, to actually help them handhold step by step together to cascade a series of metrics within a department in that university. And then the latter part of that project is to say, well, this is how we've helped you define KPIs, can we now take that approach across the university? So it really should be an opportunity to do that high level senior partnership building, cascading it through the levels to actually lead to practical application of knowledge sharing. So we're really hoping that it's going to make a fantastic tangible impact. In terms of what we've learned from this work, I think what's amazing to me is that it's given me an awareness of Vietnam that I've never had before. When I hear about all of the fantastic dealings of COVID-19, I instantly think, oh, it's our friends in Vietnam, they're doing a fantastic job. So suddenly when I'm looking at different opportunities, Vietnam is coming up front and centre as I'm looking at different global initiatives. And so it's really made me aware of the huge scale of opportunity that there is for engagement and partnership. And we're now much better placed to be able to take advantage of those opportunities because we've built such lovely relationships with our friends in Vietnam. I think we've really also appreciated the cultural differences, things, you know, whereas we'd have huge access to all sorts of different people within the university. I think that it's clear in Vietnam that there's, it's perhaps more hierarchical, but yeah, we're helping to sort of challenge some of those hierarchical structures to say, well, actually, if you need to get stuff done, you've got to pull on senior support to help you in this initiative. So there's loads of different mutually beneficial advantages, and we just really hope to keep building those relationships, keep learning from each other. And yeah, we really hope that you're able to come to Cardiff, come to Wales, and we're able to go and visit Vietnam. Thanks. That's it from me.
Thank you very much, Sarah and Phil. Really good to sort of have the other perspective on that. It's now time for Q&A. We've got about 10 minutes for doing that. While colleagues in the room are thinking about what they might want to ask, I'm going to start with a couple of questions for the panel. And the first of these is for Rob. And Rob, the question, prior to the pandemic, you travelled extensively between Wales and Vietnam. How have you seen the relationship develop, and how do you see it evolving in the future?
Yeah, that's a good question. In terms of development since the beginning, like any partnership of this kind, which is strategic, I think the level of trust has been very significant and pivotal to the relationship, and the trust at the various levels that I talked about earlier on. So governmental, at sectoral level, between institutions, but also between individuals. And you know, Sarah touched on this just a moment ago. Both Wales and Vietnam don't float free from the world and their own histories. They sit in their own history and culture, and wider understandings of those cultural and historical contexts have also been very important. Obviously, COVID has been a disruptor, but again, as Sarah just suggested, and Tui, I think, adapting to that itself has been a learning experience. In terms of future development, I'm very hopeful that we continue to engage and share ideas as Vietnam continues to reform its HE, and HE in Wales and the UK is not without change too, so that's going to be very helpful to us. I'd also hope to see research collaborations take place between individual institutions or partnerships of institutions. I think there's huge scope for development in that area.
Thanks, Rob. Van An, I wonder if you can sort of give us a Vietnamese perspective on this and on how you've seen the relationship develop and how it will evolve.
I think that over the past 2 years and through so many exchange and activities together, there's obviously that an opportunity for the culture understanding, and also the great opportunity for understanding its system that can lead to the like partnership on not only on like sharing expertise, but also like the joint effort in addressing the global challenges issue, as Thuy and also Rob have mentioned. It's about the climate change, it's about the pandemic, how we can work pandemic, because it's not just about between institution to institution, but we can utilize and mobilize the resources between the two countries to address the global share issues. So I could think that that could be an opportunity for and also the potential for the partnership in this aspect. But I also think that this is also an opportunity for promoting understanding, and also that having the high level of engagement, because normally that we only work like individual to individual or institution to institution levels. So this is my perspective.
Okay, thank you very much. It's interesting to sort of see that there are many similarities between what you and Rob have said, but also some differences that reflect your context. Yeah. Thuy, what do you see as being the long-term impact of this kind of engagement? And then I'll go to one of the questions in the chat.
Yes, thank Lee for your question. And when we're talking about different projects for Vietnam, one of the key indicators is about sustainability. So I think we are doing very good right now. We have a different projects, and we also have a different stages of each project. I think that is good to because it takes time for each project to take effect. So that is good. We can divide in a different stages. And I think in addition to that, we also need to develop a measuring and evaluation system more effectively. How about different partners, different universities participating in measuring the effect? And also we can organize conferences and also meetings regularly to evaluate our project and identify what would be the next strategies we should work on in order to make our projects or the partnership more sustainable. So I think there are many ways to work on it, but I think we should design more phrases for our project in order to measure, and also in addition to developing the measuring and evaluation system more effectively.
Great, thank you. I'm going to come back to you again with a question from Marion Gray from ABBA University, which are, what are Vietnamese universities' aspirations with respect to short-term study programs and student exchange? Any thoughts on that?
Can you say the question again?
So what is the university's aspirations with respect to short-term study programs and student exchange?
Yes, actually, as you can see, part of our university agenda, but I'm sure that many other universities in Vietnam are very interested in hosting the student exchange program, both short-term and long-term. So for our university, we have a comprehensive short-term student exchange programs, because we have been working with European and Asian schools for student exchange programs. So for our university, we're very excited about this opportunity, and we would like to work more with you and other universities to design or customize the programs that address our student needs. And I think that the short-term program is a great way for us, for our institution to know each other, and for us, professors and students, to know in order to boost our relationship to a higher level. Thank you.
Thank you, Thuy. I'm going to pass on to Van An, who's got something else to add to this.
Sorry, I had to unmute. Okay, so thanks Thuy for providing the overviews of like the institution aspiration to the short-term student exchange. So British Council also worked to promote the Turing scheme, and I had the privilege to working with the numbers of Vietnamese university, and I think that the overall aspiration from Vietnamese university, as they are welcome the opportunity to host the UK and Wales university students student in Vietnam, and also find that the good way for reciprocals of the student exchange. Vietnam have been improving in investments in the internationalization of higher education and open up more international education programs in Vietnam. So UK is the #1 countries in providing the international education in Vietnam, and also that Vietnamese university are adapting the English as a medium instruction courses, and that would be enables like greater exchange. And of course, the exchange can lead to not only about learning culture, but also establish a long-term relationship and friendship, and also that the future collaboration. So I think that is Vietnam is welcome any opportunities, and we also, of course, working with the Vietnamese University and even Wales to promote that opportunity.
Thank you. I'm just going to take a couple more questions because I'm aware of the fact I'm between you and lunch and nobody ever wants to be there. So Sarah, what are the indirect benefits to Cardiff University of this partnership?
I think it's, from our perspective in executive education in the business school, it's really made us aware of the importance of immersing ourselves in the cultural the culture of different countries. And I think there's a temptation sometimes in universities to be, international students, but really getting to know Vietnam in more detail really helps us to understand and tailor to those different communities. So we're very welcoming. I think Rob said that in his introduction as well. We're really fantastic at welcoming international students to Cardiff, and we're really doing our best to really make sure that each country feels very at home and that thought about and respected as their own distinct culture. Aside, I don't know if it's an indirect benefit or a direct benefit, but knowing people in Vietnam now to reach out to and hopefully to do things like short courses, exchanges, it's just invaluable, really. It's so much more powerful than just sending out scatter emails, please, do you want to work with us? Now we know people in Vietnam that we can really build rich collaborations together.
Thanks very much, Sarah. Phil, coming to you, how might you see this working with other countries or other universities?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we'd be really open to working with other countries and other universities. I think it's important to sort of think about sort of depth of relationship that we build within countries and specific universities. So obviously, I don't think we'd want to spread ourselves too thinly. I think it's really important that we keep up the relationships we've built and build upon those. I think that's a really important element of this partnership that we've been involved in. But of course, always open to explore new opportunities in terms of other countries and other universities.
And if I could come back on that, we learn with every engagement, so it helps us to put up a mirror, if you like, of our own systems and structures when we're sharing those systems and structures with other countries. And then it makes us sort of reevaluate, well, is that fit for purpose? So I think it's a really important self-reflection exercise as well.
Thank you both. I'm going to ruin my timekeeping, and I'm going to ask Verna if she could just answer the question, provide more information to the question in the chat about student exchange programs, although Laura has provided some. Yep.
Sorry, are you asking me? Oh.
Yeah.
All right. So it's a question from Lee, right, on how Vietnamese university can participate in the student exchange?
Yes.
Okay. So in Vietnam, we're also looking to work with the UK Vietnam Higher Education Network to organize some kind of webinar and try to connect between UK and Wales University and Vietnamese University. So in preparing for Turing, we have run a kind of like quick surveys with Vietnamese University, and we have a list of all the Vietnamese University ready for collaboration. So I will work closely more with the Ministry of Education and Training, and also the UK and Wales University in promoting that for the next rounds of Turings if we are going for the second year of the Turing scheme.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for their contributions. I'm going to wind it up there because, as I say, I'm aware of the fact I'm between you and lunch, and you've had a long morning. Thanks, panelists, for your insight, for your information, for your thoughts and opinions. I hope you've all found, those of you who've attended the session, have found this as interesting and informative as I have. We're taking a lunch break now until 1 o'clock, when I hope you'll be able to rejoin for the afternoon session, which is Working Together, Partnerships in Practice. And in that session, we'll be joined by Global Wales scholarship partners from Chevening, Fulbright, Gilman, and the British Council to discuss the positive outcomes of strategic scholarship partnerships. Thank you again, panel. Thank you, everybody, for attending the session. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.